Hey now, my name is Nick, this is Board Game Brawl, and it is time for another installment in my top 100 games of all time for 2014. We are deep into my top 50 now. We're going from number 40 down to number 31. They're just getting better and better, but of course we have to endure the second opinions of the Board Game Geek community. Let's do it. My number 40 is The Resistance from Indie Board and Cards. This is a social deduction party game that's really a team game. Some players are the Resistance in this like dystopian future. The theme doesn't really matter here. And they're trying to bring down this evil, corrupt government, but there are spies. A team of, anywhere, depending on the number of players, from like 1 to 3 spies who have, I think 3 is the max, who have infiltrated the Resistance, and they're trying to make them fail their missions. This is a very simple light game. So when I say missions, it's just card play. Whoever's on the team, there's a team leader that selects the team, they throw in a success or fail card. Of course, the spies want to fail the mission. And there's a lot of arguing back and forth. You're a spy. No, you're a spy. If you said I'm a spy, then you're a spy. And there's a lot of accusations. And that is some people's bread and butter. Other people hate it. It's a very polarizing game. Some people are addicted to it. Some people will never play it again once they've played it once. But I love it. I love that there's just like, you can follow like a breadcrumb trail of who did what and figure out, why did you play that? Why did you say that? I love it. Way better than Werewolf, blows it out of the water. One of the greatest party games ever, and I think the sales have really proved that because it is a super popular game. Resistance Avalon's a little bit better because of the special roles, but they just released a couple of small expansions that will make all the special roles and stuff from Avalon go into the normal game for Resistance. So any way you slice it, fantastic game. That is The Resistance from Indie Board and Cards. However, Substandard Tim says, I kept thinking we were in some kind of pre-game rounds where we figure out what our roles are, and then I realized that was the game. My number 38 is Trains from AEG. Now, I love deck builders. If you're familiar with my channel at all, you know that. But I've played so many now that I'm always looking for something that does the deck building genre different and puts a different spin on it. And Trains really does that because you have your typical Dominion style deck building with all these piles of cards that you can buy representing trains and laying down rails and putting out stations and personnel for your train stations. Okay, whatever. But then you have this board where you're actually building your rails and you're putting out little cubes and sort of area control, trying to get as many cubes in control as you can over different cities that have stations in order to get more and more and more points. And the interesting thing here is that the more you build, the more waste you have to take into your deck. So there's always this aspect of deck building games where you have junk cards in your deck. Well, now that's literally junk. It's waste from just building all these different things. So you have to try to mitigate that as best as possible. And sometimes you're just going to have a handful of waste and you're going to have to deal with it. But I love that back and forth. I love the deck building of it. It's very strategic. It plays quickly, however, which is what I really like about it, even though it looks like it'd be much more complicated. It's been a big hit with my group. People that don't typically love deck builders love this game, and I love it too. That is Trains from AEG. However, Off Water says, give +1 waste, me +1 waste, Dominion +1 waste, over +1 waste, this +1 waste, any +1 waste, day +1 waste. My number 38 is Love Letter from AEG. This was the game that started the micro game craze, which I think we're still in the middle of, really, or maybe we're just coming out of it. But what the goal here was, or with any micro game, is to have a very minimal amount of cards, in this case 16, I believe, and try to spin that out into a full-fledged game. And designer Seiji Kanai, who originally published this game over in Japan, knocked it out of the park here. This is kind of what he's an expert at. He's done a lot of different games like this, and Love Letter is really his magnum opus. It's very simple. You're just trying to eliminate the other players, and you do this through card play. It's just draw a card, play a card. You play the cards out in front of you, and they might require you to guess another person's hand or compare hands with another player and try to eliminate them that way or make them discard a card. And of course, thematically, you're trying to get love letters to the princess in order to get little tokens, points of her affection, but really, the theme doesn't matter too much, even though it is cool that the princess is the highest card. It's just sort of like this bomb that you can either instantly possibly win with, or if someone makes you discard her, you instantly lose with. A surprising amount of strategy here. I know some people will claim differently, but play with the same group of people multiple times over a long period of time. You will pick up on the subtle hints of what they're playing and why they played a certain card, and process of elimination and deduction is very prevalent throughout the game. I love it. It's been a big hit. Probably played more times in my group than any other game, and for good reason. In fact, there's only one other micro game that might be better than it on my list, but we'll get to that in a second. That is Love Letter from AEG, my number 38. However, 2018 says player elimination plus heavy luck factor plus possibility of eliminating someone before they even get their first turn equals miserable excuse for a game. That pasted theme, though. For my number 37, the only game in the micro game filler game category that could beat Love Letter on my list is, of course, its younger sibling, Lost Legacy, also from AEG and also from the same designer, Seiji Kanai. And in fact, the main mechanics of the game are exactly the same. You have a minimal set of cards, you draw a card, you play a card, you try to eliminate the other players. The catch is you have a whole extra phase at the end of the game where it's a deduction phase where you're trying to find out where the Lost Legacy is. A Lost Legacy is this one card that is like a hot potato that's circulating between people's hands. It might go into might still be in the deck, it might be in the ruins, which are like these other cards laid out. If you survive into the final phase of the game, you have to figure out where that card is, and you only get one shot at it, and it's possible that everyone will lose. And when I first played this game, I did not like it as much as Love Letter. But when I played it more and got more into how much depth it had compared to Love Letter, and also when you add extra sets that add more different and unique mechanics to it, it really opens up. I only like playing the Japanese version. I'm not really fond of what AEG is doing with it, to be honest, but still, either way you slice it, solid game, really enjoy it, and I like it even more, apparently, than Love Letter. That is Lost Legacy from AEG. However, Philip Thomas says, better than Love Letter, in the same way that having your finger cut off is better than having your thumb cut off. My number 36 is Pandemic. Now, this is the game that really started the cooperative craze. There were other cooperative games before this. I think that one of the most notable ones is the original Lord of the Rings game from Fantasy Flight Games, but Pandemic is the one that put cooperative games on the map and led to the cooperative craze that really only started to die out this year. But you still see cooperative games coming out, and I think you can owe that all to Pandemic and its wild success. You can even find the game on Target shelves right now, and of course it was on tabletop, and then it just exploded in popularity, and the new edition is even better. This is a game all about trying to stop viral outbreaks in sort of an alternate what-if future where you've got 4 different viruses just ravaging the world. You're a team of first responders that have to work together, jet setting across the globe, trying to cure these diseases. But mechanically, you're just doing set collection, trying to get different colored cards in order to turn them in and cure the disease, and then remove all the cubes, as many cubes as you can from the board to prevent outbreaks. It's tense, it's really difficult at times, especially when you play with the harder difficulty levels, but I love the variety of the special roles that everyone has, and it's just a solid game. And it's one of the games that really made me fall in love with the cooperative genre. Even though there are other cooperative games I like more now, I'll always have a fond place in my heart for Pandemic. It's just a great game, great theme, love it. That is Pandemic from Z-Man Games. However, Grape Ape says, if it's all win or lose, is it really a game? My number 35 is Legends of Andor, released domestically from Fantasy Flight Games. This is another cooperative game, back-to-back cooperative games here. Very different theme. This is where it's your sort of traditional fantasy warriors. You've got like the human and the dwarf and the wizard, and you're teaming up together to go through different scenarios. It's a scenario-based game. You'll have different missions that you have to complete, and it might be get a letter to the forest folk or defeat like dragon in a mine, things like that. This is very different from a lot of cooperative games because while it is an adventure game and you do feel like an adventurer going out and, you know, it's different than a game like, say, Descent, because this one is much more puzzly. This won the Kenner Spiel des Jahres award last year, and I think the reason for that is not just because, it's like a beautiful, you know, sort of family-oriented cooperative game, but because it is a puzzle. It really feels puzzly. This is like the Eurogamer's cooperative game. But whether you like, you know, just Euro games or whether you like just cooperative games, I think either way it works really well because it's kind of brain burnery, but you're working together, and it's so difficult that at times you can kind of, you're just, even if you don't typically like cooperative games, you're going to be eager to get this puzzle solved of how you can move from here to here and how you can, you know, move most efficiently and go over here and try to help your party member as quickly as possible and try to prevent the monsters from getting in the castle. It's so cool. It's so fun. I wish more expansions were out, or any expansions were out in the US. It seems like they've totally left this game to die, and that's really, really sad because it's a fantastic, beautiful game. The artwork on the board and the characters, I think Michael Menzel is also the designer and the artist. Fantastic. It just looks great. Even with stand-up cardboard standees, it looks great. and I wish the game was given more love. There's a reason it won such a prestigious award as the Kennerspiel, because it's just great. Legends of Andor from Fantasy Flight Games, that's my number 35. However, New Killer Star 27 says, a prime example of why artists should stick to what they do best and leave the designing to the professionals. My number 34 is Shadowhunters, a phenomenal party game. This is another hidden role deduction game. However, it's also a roll and move game. Surprise! The thing is, these things mesh together better than you would expect. It's very random and it's very light, and it feels like there's not a lot of strategy to it at times, but it's not really about that. It's about trying to figure out who everyone is, being totally shocked when you were totally wrong and that you were attacking them the whole time, or that you just got, or someone else is just attacking you the whole time when you know that they shouldn't be, but you can't tell them because you don't know who everyone is. You're either a shadow or a hunter or a neutral. If you're the shadows, you want to kill the hunters. If you're the hunters, you want to kill the shadow. And if you're the neutral, you have some completely different victory objective, like get the most equipment or be the first person to die. There can only be one winner or maybe several winners, but you don't know who's on your team. You don't know what everyone is or who's doing what or why they're doing a certain thing. Why are they attacking you? Are they on your team? Are they trying to throw somebody else off? It's just crazy. There's special cards that you can use to figure out who everyone is. The hermit cards, and there's weapons and items. So great. So much game to it. A surprising amount. It's a little more complex than most party games. It's way more random than most normal board games, but it just works very well for me. I like the theme, I like the artwork, I like the presentation. I know there's some people that hate it, but I love it. That is Shadowhunters from Z-Man Games, my number 34. However, Saxetti says, I would not go so far as to say that I would cut my own throat before I would ever play this game again, but I might certainly saw on it a bit with a box cutter, and if I did nick the old carotid when doing so, I might at least die with the consolation that I would never again suffer through a session of Shadowhunters. Pretty much the opposite of many things I like in a game. My number 33 is a bit of a cheat. It's two games that are exactly the same, just with different artwork and slightly different theme. They're really standalone expansions to each other. That is War Machine High Command and Hordes High Command. These are deck building games that are set in the same universe as the War Machine and Hordes tactical miniature skirmish games. In the War Machine side, you have these warcasters who are wizards who take control of magical steam jacks and also other grounded infantry units. And in the Hordes High Command, you are these, I think, warlocks they are, that take control of giant magical beasts. And you can mix and match them together. They're all pretty much the same. They all function the same way, gameplay-wise. And what you're doing deck building, as with so many other games, but there's a few twists. First off, you have your own personal deck that you purchase cards from and your own personal lineup. And you build that ahead of time depending on which warcasters you chose. You get to construct a deck from those different cards. Then in battle, you're not just purchasing cards to put into your deck and possibly getting victory points that way. You're then, when you draw those cards again, you're launching them into battle. You're rushing them to the front to vie for control of different locations. And if you can win those locations, you'll get those points and put those cards into your deck as well to get other special abilities. I love this game. I really do. I don't know why people bash it so much. I understand that it's a little complex and it's a little bit long and it's not kinds to colorblind people, and some people don't like the back and forth of going for locations, but I think it's a tense struggle. There's more interaction than most deck builders. I love the presentation of it. I love the theme. It just works so well for me, and I wish more people liked it because there's a lot of content out there for it. War Machine or Hordes High Command, my number 33. However, one of our celebrity second opinions, Eek a Mouse, says, this game is awful. My number 32 is Awakon, which also stands for Old World in Code of Nine. This is from Baka Fire Party, who is the same designer behind Tragedy Looper, which was higher up on my list. I want to say this is one of the newest games on my list, but if you look on BGG, it actually came out, or was designed at least, in 2012, but people only started to talk about it this year. I think it had its official premiere at Essen Spiel 2014. This, at face value, it's just a very simple worker placement game. And if that's all that it was, it wouldn't be anywhere near my top 100 list because it's just very simple. You put a token here of your color, you get either some willpower points or you get a little token that representing gold coins or a statue or something and whatever. The trick here is that this is a worker placement game mixed with deduction. You're like androids in the future who have woken up and all the humans are dead, and you're trying to remember what your orders are. So every player gets dealt out 2 cards that they put in 2 spots on their board, either the Abyss section or the Shoal section. The Shoal card is easier to get to than the Abyss card. These cards represent endgame victory conditions for everybody. But only you know what your 2 cards are. The other players have to try and take special worker placement spots during the course of the game. And the game only lasts like 4 or 5 rounds. If they can get to those certain spots, they can look at other people's cards, but it's very difficult to look at their second card, their Abyss card. So all the time that someone might be collecting these coins, they might actually be worth negative points for them, but they don't know it. But maybe you know that statues are worth extra points. Or maybe you know that 1 or 2 players are going to be completely eliminated because they don't have enough of a certain treasure, or they're lagging behind the other players in gathering treasure. You could lose before you ever even get to score your stuff. And some people are going to hate that about this game. I love it. I love the deduction and trying to figure out what's going on and knowing that your entire game could be screwed up because you didn't look at that one card. It's hard to describe why that's so much fun for me, but it is. And it's fast and it's simple and it's light and it's fun. I love the theme. I love the artwork. I love this game and I want to play it more, and I hope there's more expansions for it. That is Awakon from Block of Fire Party. However, Mixo says, gameplay wise it's rather a 6, but I knocked it down for the cheap and ugly components. My number 31 and the final one for today's section of the list is Darkest Night from Victory Point Games. Another game that I feel does not get enough love, and I think the reason is it's from Victory Point Games. And most people associate them with either like heavier war games or solitaire games, and generally games that don't look very good, have bad components, substandard components. And while I can't say that the game looks fantastic as far as some of the components go, I love the artwork, and the theme is what really sells it here. This is essentially fantasy pandemic, but with a lot more depth. You take control of a band of adventurers, and it's tons of different variety of characters depending on whether you have the expansions or not. And you're trying to stop this necromancer from running around this realm and dropping all these evil blights, which are like curses and monsters and zombies and things like that. And you can only do this by finding this holy relic that you have to get these keys for to open these chests. Get the relic, run to the necromancer, put an end to him once and for all, but of course that's easier said than done. It's a very challenging game. There's lots of theme to it, lots of cooperation between the players. It feels like a little mini RPG in some ways, maybe not as much role-playing, but it's so great. I love it. It's like a very cool, strategic, cooperative game that people just don't pay attention to. But I hope they start to pay attention to it. Maybe there'll be a deluxe edition someday with really nice, solid components. And in that way, more people will pick it up because it deserves the attention. That is Darkest Night from Victory Point Games, my number 31. Hey people, it's Nick from the editing room. I forgot to put in the Board Game Geek negative comment for Darkest Night, but it's a pretty good one, so I didn't want to leave it out, so here it is. Rolling Skull says, whatever the market is for games with no real meaningful decisions and a lot of D6 rolls to see if you succeed at your meaningless action or end up having spent a doubly meaningless turn, Victory Point Games surely has it cornered. Thanks so much for watching, guys. We're getting closer and closer to the top, and I hope that you stick with me all the way to the end, because it's going to be awesome. Take care.